guys. Hey. Hey. I can't even see you. It's so bright. Hey. Hey. What's up? Hey. Hey. I'm Sarah Longwell, publisher of the Bulwark. It's so good to see everybody in my hometown of Pennsylvania. Guys, I'm doing a couple things here tonight. One, obviously, I'm here with the Bulwark because I'm the publisher. But I also do this other thing. It's called Republican Voters Against Trump. Yeah. And we're doing a bus tour right now. I don't know if you saw the bus outside. It's wrapped, it's big. We had to get a lot of security for it, in case somebody wanted to ride up alongside of us or something. So I'm not trying to give anybody any ideas. The security's really intense, so sorry. But I wanted to introduce you to some of them because these are the bravest people that I know. A lot of times people, they'll say things, Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, and obviously they're doing amazing things. But I'm not sure there's anything braver than being somebody in your own community who has worked in the local Republican Party, who's willing to put your face in a TV ad, on a billboard, and say, look, I've been a Republican my whole life, but I will not vote for Donald Trump again. And the reason that they do it is they know that as messengers, they are the most persuasive people because the thing that people trust, right? People don't trust anything anymore. They do trust people like them. And so I just want to introduce you to one guy right now. It's a guy named Robert Nix. If Robert will come out, this is Robert Nix, guys. Robert, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for riding the bus with us. Why don't you tell everybody out here why you're a Republican voter against Trump?
I am still a Republican. I was a Republican all my life since 1980. I registered to vote for Ronald Reagan, and I didn't just vote in the party. I actually became involved. I was the head of Hispanic outreach for the Republican Party, and I worked with Bush Cheney. I worked with Senator Specter and Santorum. I worked with the Republican State Committee. I got to meet with McCain and talk about Hispanic outreach efforts. I ran as a Republican in 2008 for the state Senate. And now, and that was all back then. That was 20 years ago, I was the face of the Republican Hispanic outreach. 20 years later, now I'm one of the faces of Republican voters against Trump.
Yeah, man.
And it's not me that changed. The party changed dramatically that I can't even call it a political party anymore. I can't. I don't see this race as anything between Republicans and Democrats. I see it as trying to preserve our democracy. So yes, I'm happy to be part of this. I'm happy to do whatever I can.
All right, let me just ask you one question. Because the thing that makes me crazy, and if you guys, well, you're here, so you probably listen to me on some of these podcasts. What I can't get over is the people who don't speak out. George Bush, yes. General Mattis. We get all these reports. Woodward Books just came out, and we've got all these, he's whispering, Milley and they're saying stuff at parties to Bob Woodward, and I'm begging them to say something to the American people. These guys, they were in the military. They were willing to die for our democracy, so I cannot believe they're not willing to say something in this moment when they believe the things that we clearly know they believe from these back-end reports. But tell me this, what makes me the craziest about it is that they won't do it, but guys like you will. So tell me, why was it so important for you to speak out and say something?
Well, I voted for Trump in 2016, and I think I'm trying to atone for that mistake this entire time. And this is my way of doing it, is giving of myself and my time to make sure that more people, more Republicans in particular, see what is happening and not just believe it's just the same old election between Democrats and Republicans, because it isn't. It's something much more important and much deeper than that.
All right, Robert, thank you so much for being here, man. We really appreciate it. Thanks for saying hi. All right, guys, and now we're going to bring out everybody from the Bulwark because we always take a selfie right before the show starts. And so I'm going to welcome to the stage, what are their names? Bill Crystal, Jonathan Last, Tim Miller, Andrew Egger. Here's my people. Where's Tim? Do I have Tim? This guy is he's such a diva. You know, he's probably off having a drink. This was his idea, Megan. Where is he? Where's my guy? Where's the picture? He got a haircut? Yeah, he was looking real fresh back there in his beanie. All right, well, this is either happening or it isn't, Megan. What? Go ahead and do it. Okay, come on. All right, come here. Here. All right, now all of you wave. Yeah.
That's not a special applause for me.
Yeah.
Late entrance
right.
drama,
All right, thank you for indulging that. We did that at the first show, and now for some reason we do it at every show. Yeah. Thanks. All right, and now I've got a really special surprise for you guys. So I would like to welcome to the stage somebody who, so like I said, I'm from Pennsylvania, and I always had a favorite Pennsylvania congressman. Somebody who I wanted to emulate my own career after because he was a moderate Republican who got things done. And so I would like to introduce everybody and welcome Charlie Dent to the stage. Hey, Charlie. Come in. Have a seat. Hi. Good. Hey, man.
Hey, the lights are bright, man.
They are. You can't even see. There's people filling the rafters up there.
I can see the first row, and that's about it.
It's incredible. So I got to ask you, you're here in Pennsylvania, yeah?
Yep.
You're a voter in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
And early voting started, what?
A couple weeks ago.
2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Did you vote?
I voted on Friday.
Who'd you vote for?
Kamala.
You
Kamala.
did?
Well, I didn't want to spoil my perfect record. I'm 0 for 3 when it comes to Trump. I didn't vote for him, 16, 20, or 24 this year.
You know, I didn't realize that maybe about you all the way back in 2016. Were you outspoken back then?
Yes, I actually.
I'm just kidding. I know that.
No,
I followed everything you did.
I wrote in Evan McMullen because
Oh, wow, yeah.
he was running in some states, and I knew him. And
So tell me why. So I think for a lot of Republicans, as I was just talking about, we've seen people, they're out on Trump. I see this all the time in focus groups too, but I really among a lot of Republican elected officials, Mitt Romney, another person that I love very much, but who seems to be very clear about how he feels about Trump, but can't get there affirmatively on Kamala Harris. How did you get there affirmatively on Kamala Harris?
Well, I really wasn't planning on saying anything publicly this time for a variety of reasons. Because I run the Aspen Institute Congressional Program. It's bipartisan, and I thought, is it worth it for me to say anything? But over time, I just always knew that I was never going to ever get there for Trump. I always thought he was unfit, that he was a menace to the constitutional order, and just what did he say last week? He's going to sick the military on people who disagree with him. I mean, come on. I mean, at some point, he's just unacceptable. So the question for me is, I think Kamala is trying to pivot to the center. I hope she does that. I hope she's sincere about it, because I think that's what's keeping some people away, frankly. They think she's too far over. Coming out against, say, fracking in Pennsylvania, hey, that ship sailed a long time ago in this state. I mean, nobody talks about banning it. How do you regulate it? How do you tax it? I mean, that's the kind of issue where I think, she really needed to reposition, and there are other issues too. And I hope that she's able to do it. But some folks, I think, are just not going to get there because they just don't agree with her on various policies.
Okay, well, I was looking through the crosstabs of the New York Times Santa poll about Pennsylvania recently, and there was a number that jumped out at me, which was that 11% of self-identified Republicans in Pennsylvania currently say they're going to vote for Kamala Harris. Does that sound right to you? Does that seem right?
I kept saying I would be surprised. I would look for Trump to win. He's going to need probably 93% of the Republican vote, I guess, something like that. I'd be shocked if he got to 90. Maybe he does. Maybe he does.
What do you guys think? Is he going to get to 90?
But our politics is so fractured, and we are so deeply polarized as a country. And I know a lot of people who vote for Trump who tell me how much of an asshole he is, how much they can't stand him. but they can't go the other way. I mean, I got to tell you, if I had a nickel for everybody who told me who voted for Trump, who tells me how much they dislike him, I'd be pretty wealthy. And I remember I got into it with a friend of mine back in 2016. Who was a very good, who still is a friend, but he's an older guy. And he just said to me, and he said, Trump is unfit, he's terrible, and he was giving me all these reasons why he's terrible. And then he said, but you got to vote for him. I said, Bob, we agree on the facts. We've just come to different conclusions. And there's that, and this is a very good, honorable guy, a very smart guy, a PhD in chemistry. And, but that's what you have, that's Trump's superpower, that he can get people who really don't like him to vote for him. It's remarkable. I mean, when you think about it. And I think that is the challenge.
I don't know if remarkable is the word I would use.
I mean,
There's some things that are darker that I find.
I wish I could get people, when I ran a whole bunch of times.
But you're such a nice guy, that's the problem.
But I figured if people didn't like me, they would vote for my opponent for the most part, unless they hated him too, and which is the bigger asshole,
Mm-hmm. So, we spend a lot of time in our world, and I don't even mean Bulwark world, but I kind of mean like former Republican. You're still a Republican, but there's like the disaffected, sad Republicans, the sad Republicans. We get together, and we talk, and we say, oh my gosh, are we, we're voting for Democrats. Some people feel like they are Democrats now. Others are saying, man, we got to start a third party. Other times people are like, well, we got to take the Republican Party back. If Trump loses, right, and we're in a position to, right? All right, so if Trump loses, what do you do about the Republican Party?
I think the issue is, for those of us who are dispirited or disillusioned, is to not leave. I think our job is to stay in and try to create a new movement within the party, and that's why I'm helping lead a group called Our Republican Legacy, established by former U.S. Senators Jack Danforth, Alan Simpson, and Bill Cohen. And all of us, we think the party needs to get back to a principle-based discussion, and we're not there. And we need to counter the MAGA narrative. And too often, my former colleagues, they didn't like what Trump was doing either. But we'd be in a room and they'd complain, and I'd say, hey guys, this does, bitching to each other in the back room isn't doing any good. Okay, we can complain, but unless you're willing to go public, it ain't gonna matter, because you cannot counter the narrative, the MAGA narrative, with silence. All they hear is the MAGA narrative. The silence is silence. They don't hear anything. Yeah. So that's why they're so dominant. But the Republican Party is divided. It's not evenly divided, but it is divided. And there are a significant number of Republicans, and you probably have the data, but I don't know, start with the Nikki Haley voters, but even a significant number of Trump voters want a different direction for the party. They need to hear the argument based on principles. And I can give you the 5 principles, and I'll be real fast. The Constitution. We believe in the rule of law.
Love the Constitution.
We love the Constitution.
Yeah.
But we believe in the rule of law, peaceful transfer of power, and all the things that, we think January 6th was an abomination. We believe in the Union. Abraham Lincoln founded us. He wanted to keep this country together, not further divide it or break it apart. 2. 3, we believe in free markets. Now, we're not talking about the 1850s or the 1920s. We understand modern reasonable regulation, but we should embrace free markets. And when Trump proposes these idiotic, across-the-board, indiscriminate tariffs, we should scream to the high heaven that that is counter to everything Republicans should be standing for in the 21st century. So there's one. We should talk about, and neither party's talking about fiscal discipline. We are going to have to talk about some kind of fiscal reform, similar, maybe a Bowles-Simpson type of deal again. We're going to have to get back to something, because neither party's talking about it, but that train wreck is coming, and we should start to talk about that. Have the conversation. And finally, the 5th point, principle, would be, some would call it peace through strength. I would just say a constructive national security policy that embraces allies and rejects aggressive autocrats like Vladimir Putin. Okay, not very complicated. So those 5 points. So those 5 points or principles, I think that those principles essentially sustained the Republican Party for 170 years, and those roots are deep. MAGA's roots are quite shallow. They've been around for, what, 9 years now?
Yeah, and they're 0 for 5 on your principles, just to be clear.
Well, that's right. But you know what, though? But there are a lot of people who are registered Republican who agree with those principles. There are a lot of people who are independents and Democrats who agree with those principles. So that's where we should talk about, not just principles for the party. And by the way, on social issues, we're pretty agnostic. We think there should be a diversity of opinion. We should welcome a diversity of opinion. And that's kind of where we are. And I think that's where we need to go. But we can't do this from the outside. You know, if I leave the party, then where's my standing, right? I don't want to leave the party. I've been a Republican my whole life, and I was, especially now in the post-Dobbs environment, I think the Republicans really have to rethink what they're doing. I mean, I was the last Republican to vote. I voted against the 20-week abortion ban. I was the only one of two in the House, only one of two. And I was getting grief from some of my own guys. I said, I'm not getting in trouble at home over this, but I know I'm out of step with some of you guys, but guess what? You guys don't elect me. They do. So, okay, too bad. Well, no, see, but I don't see a new party. I just don't know that it would catch fire. I just don't. Now, obviously, the Republican Party was a new party that displaced the Whigs, but I don't know. In our modern history, it hasn't worked so well.
Yeah. Okay. If we just shout questions at him, then I don't get to ask my question that I want to ask, which is...
Sarah's in charge. You can learn that real fast.
So my last question before I let you go is, what will it take for Kamala to win Pennsylvania? This is the whole ball game. The reason we're here, the reason we threw together this show at the very last minute, as you know, is because you guys are the ball game. So what is it going to take?
Well, let me put first. Look, I said very publicly she should have selected Josh Shapiro as the vice presidential running mate. Now, I say that respectfully because she needs to run up the score in Pennsylvania. She needs to do very well in the Philadelphia media market, especially. He's strong there. And he also won in areas where Biden did not. So that's how I looked at it. And I thought it would have been a much... I know Tim Waltz, he's a friend. We got stuck together in the Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan in a snowstorm. We know each other pretty well. He's a good guy. But he didn't bring, in my view, didn't bring as much value. So, but bottom line, she's got to run up the score of the Philadelphia media market. She needs to win my old seat. She'll win Lehigh County, Northampton County, the bellwether county of the state, in my view. That's whoever wins that county, my only prediction, whoever wins that county is going to win the state and is going to win the presidency. Now, so watch that county. I'd also watch Erie County. You know where she's also going to need to do well in the capital region, Harrisburg area. I'll say what maybe
where I'm from.
The Scott Perry district, essentially.
That's really where I'm from.
Yeah, so
if I really cared about democracy, I'd go run for that seat.
And so she's got to win there. She's also obviously going to have to do well in Allegheny County and the suburbs of Pittsburgh. She's going to get crushed. She's going to get crushed out in the western part of the state, outside Allegheny County. She might win Erie. She'll win Center County, where Penn State's. And by the way, I'm telling their people, November 2nd, they better be in Pennsylvania, because you know what's going on that day? Penn State, Ohio State. You know what? Better get up there. That's seriously.
Get the coach, bring him out.
Well, he's going to be a little busy that day. He's got to win. But so that's what's going on. But she's got to run up the score.
Not the coach of the football team. The Walls, the coach.
Jeez, I'm sorry. I thought you meant James Franklin. I think you meant James Franklin.
You think I know who the coach of the football team is? I don't know that.
He's doing X's and O's. I mean, come on. He's got his contract's on the line. No, but all
right. So then your prediction is she can do it. Northampton and Erie are the bellwether, but you think she can do it.
And also watch two other counties. Bucks. Now,
anybody from Bucks County here tonight? Yeah.
Of course. Well, of the collar counties, that is the most competitive. Now, Biden won that by 6 or 8 points. I'm curious to see if she wins it by as much as Biden did. The other one I'm going to watch is Lackawanna, where Scranton is. Now, I suspect Lackawanna may actually flip Republican this time. Now that doesn't mean she loses. It just means that she has to make the votes up elsewhere, because that county has been drifting to the Republican column, toward the Republican column for some time. Luzerne, where Wilkes-Barre is, went in 2016, and it went big. It's not coming back. Democrats lost that forever. So watch Lackawanna. But bottom line is, run up the score of the Philadelphia media market, perform well in Lehigh Valley, capital region, suburbs, and remember, she's got to cut down the margins even in the red areas. So she was smart to go to, say, Beaver County and Luzerne County, because remember what happened in 2020. Donald Trump performed better in only 1 out of 67 counties in 2020 relative to 2016. Only 1. You're in it, Philadelphia. He performed a little bit better here in 20 than he did in 16. Every other county, even
That's
counties
so
he won
weird, because
big.
he kept saying they were cheating here.
I know. It just makes your head explode. Because I remember watching this. It makes your head explode. Because I've always said this: if he were going to, if the election were stolen in Pennsylvania, okay, he lost by 81,000 votes here. But a guy named Tim DeFore, who's a state auditor general, won by, I think, 300,000 votes, Republican, in an open seat. Stacey Garrity beat an incumbent Democrat who was a good guy, defeated the treasurer, and she won by about 100,000 votes. So the question I always asked was, if the Democrats were going to steal the election in Pennsylvania, specifically Philadelphia, well, why the hell didn't they take it all? I mean, I just never understood it.
It's almost like it's not true.
I mean, it's just not true.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of a lie. But the bottom line is he did better in Philly in 20. Now, he still got crushed here, but a little less. But in every other county, in all these counties where he won big, in Fulton and Cambria County and all these places, he won a little less big. And that was the difference. And, of course, in the collar counties, Hillary won the collar counties by about 185,000 votes. Bucks, Montgomery, Chester, Delaware. Biden won them by about 285,000. So there's your 100,000 vote differential. That was really where it happened. But it happened everywhere, but especially in those collar counties. So that's what I'm looking at.
All right, so Charlie Dent just said it's up to you guys. You guys are the deciders, so we got to get it done. All right, Charlie Dent, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for breaking your news about Kamala Harris. This was great. All right.
I'm already getting
Charlie Dent, everybody. Oh, and now we got to welcome to the stage Tim Miller and George Conway.
Thank you so much, Congressman. Very good vote. Who was that you voted for again? Who was that you voted for again? Kamala Harris? Kamala Harris. Good vote. I heard 4 of you cheer for Simpson Bulls. Who's out there? We love Simpson Bulls. Me, George, and 4 of them were out there. They were excited. All right, we're going to do a podcast here, guys. So everybody's got to play pretend for a second.
That means everybody has to be quiet.
Yeah, we're playing pretend. 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to the Bulwark Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Miller. My guest today, you might have heard of him, George Conway.
Hi.
Claudia Conway's father.
Yeah.
Among other things.
It's her birthday today, by the way.
Happy birthday, Claudia.
Everybody sing happy birthday.
I've been trying to hire her. Every time you get on. All right, George, you sent so many good tweets, but you sent one good one that I want to read here.
Just one.
Because it's so good. You called Donald Trump stupid as well as being ill-tempered, a despicable human being.
No, I didn't do that.
And a narcissist.
I would never say that.
That was not you?
That was Mitch McConnell.
Oh, that was Mitch McConnell.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Mitch McConnell, yeah.
The producer gave me the wrong notes.
Yeah, and remember how he voted to remove the guy and make sure he never became president?
Is that
no,
what
he
happened?
didn't do that. No. But that's what he felt about the guy.
Yeah, Mitch McConnell was out today with a statement about this. He said, well, J.D. Vance said worse.
Yeah, no, that's right.
I swear to God, that was
statement. What happened was this AP guy, Tackett, wrote a bio of McConnell, and McConnell's quoted as saying all these things. He doesn't deny saying them, and he just says, well, other people have said worse. And I thought, I came up with the idea that maybe what they should do, the Harris campaign for the next, I don't know, we could have October Madness, where we take all the quotes about things that people have said about Trump, like Tillerson, he's a moron, and we could have playoffs to see who had the best quote about Trump. I mean, you got so many people. You got Kelly, you got Mattis, you've got so many people who've said so many great and accurate things about Donald Trump, and then they're going to vote for him. But I don't know.
The other thing that he said, I want to get to Mattis in a second. The other thing that McConnell said that just had my blood boiling in this book, it didn't get quite as much attention as despicable human being, because that's a pretty good quote.
Yeah.
He was talking about.
I mean, it's an insult to despicable human beings, but yeah.
Yeah, that's true. He was like. He was saying to a friend, or I guess it's his self-notes. I guess he has a voice memo. He thinks very highly of himself. He's like, he's got a life memoir that he voice memos.
That must be the most scintillating thing to listen to.
I know. Just put those to bed.
I mean, Taylor Swift, look out.
Yeah, play those when you're going to sleep. And he said that it was clear that there were a bunch of things that Donald Trump did that were indictable. And so he's excited to see what Merrick Garland was going to do.
Yeah.
And that confuses me a little bit, because he voted against convicting him
for
the things that he thought were indictable.
Right.
I don't understand how that works.
Yeah, I mean that's why he gave this weird, but it had some great aspects to it, speech right after the impeachment. Immediately after the impeachment trial was gavelled to a close, he took the floor, and he basically called Donald Trump a criminal. He says there is a criminal law. His position was, because he was no longer president, he could no longer be convicted, which made no sense because the Constitution doesn't just say that removal is a sanction for a conviction, but also barring from federal office. And he was impeached as president while he was president. And so that position really made no sense, but it was an excuse for him and his colleagues basically not to take any responsibility for it. They didn't want to be the ones who had the fingerprints on removing Trump from public life, and they were cowards.
Yeah.
And then, but they thought, obviously he's going to go away because that's what all these malignant narcissists through history do, right?
Yeah. They just disappear.
And here we are in Pennsylvania.
What a catastrophic lack of judgment. I'm not a fancy lawyer like you, but that argument never made a lot of sense to me because it's like, so if you're immune from everything that happens on your way out of office, that means like you kind of get a free day of crime on your last day.
Supreme
right?
Court
On Inauguration Day, you can just start gatting people if you're the president.
The Supreme Court has made it 24/7 now.
Yeah. Okay, got it. So it's no longer one day of crime
it's like,
on your day out. Now it's whole. That's pretty dark. Okay. Well, while we're in darkness, I had Bob Woodward on the pod this morning for people here live. Yesterday for people listening, he was great. Yeah. So he did tell me one thing that kind of annoyed me a little bit. But I have a lot of respect.
You're easily annoyed, though.
I am. I have a lot of respect for Bob Woodward, so I didn't want to derail the podcast with my own issues. But he was like, yeah. I was asking him. I said, oh, you had this great reveal where Mark Milley went up to you at a party. And he said, Donald Trump's a fascist. He's the most dangerous thing to the country. It's a very important thing to say. I would have maybe said it, I don't know, publicly, instead of just to Bob Woodward at a party, but that's just me. And then I said, I noticed you mentioned in the book that Jim Mattis was also at the party, so I'm wondering what he said to you. And Bob said, well, he didn't say anything to me then, but he emailed me 3 days ago telling me that everything that is in the book is right. And I was like, why is he emailing you? Does he not have access to Zoom? Is it FaceTime? Does he not have a phone? I'm sure Nicole Wallace would have him on TV if he wants to do
I think
it.
He could
send Barry to his house.
I think he could walk into 400 North Cap and MSNBC. They'd put him right on if he, if he was going to say that. See, it's
There's
crazy.
a lot of access.
Yeah,
what's happening?
Well, what's happening with that? And I had this discussion with another former flag officer, U.S. Army flag officer, the other day, and they have this weird belief that former generals, retired generals, should not express political opinions publicly. And
just in emails and at parties.
Right, just in emails and at cocktail parties.
The most famous reporter in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And
got it.
And I think part of the logic is, well, they're still technically commissioned because they're getting pensions, and we don't want to. And it's like, nobody out there is going to make that distinction. And the other point about it is the idea that military officers in uniform should stay out of politics and not take political. Let's leave apart of all the presidents we've had who were generals, and the fact that fucking McClellan ran for president against Lincoln in the middle of the Civil War. Let's put all that history aside. And
that he was Secretary of Defense.
A
civilian.
And Mattis was Secretary of Defense. Kelly was Chief of Staff. Both political appointees. It doesn't make sense because the purpose of that stricture, that ethical stricture, and maybe there's something in the UCMJ about it, is to make sure that there is civilian and constitutional control over the military. And here we're talking about a guy they know and they think is a fascist, and they are criticizing privately and in emails and at cocktail parties because they think he would use the military unconstitutionally to defeat his domestic enemies. He says that. They know that. And these guys are, the two groups of people who best understood what Trump was going to become were...
Never Trump podcast hosts.
That's like this little group right there. No, the two big groups were were psychiatrists and psychologists, mental health professionals, because they saw the they saw the personality disorders. I mean, you just, I mean, I like to wave these things around. You just check the boxes. The guy, you know, you only have to have 3 out of 7 of the for the ones for sociopathy, and he's like 7 for 7. He's like, you know, and the other group were people whose professions depended upon a study and knowledge of history, which would include history professors, political science professors, comparative government professors, diplomats, and military types. And they saw this first. That's why in 2016, we saw these long lists of bipartisan former diplomats and State Department officials saying, this guy is dangerous, because they saw the personality type. There was actually a third group. The third group were abused spouses. I'm not joking. They saw it like, oh, this guy, he's like my, you know, ex-husband, and he's bad news. And he's like worse than that. Melania hasn't got that message yet. But no, that's the whole thing about it, is these guys are they know better, and they are in a position to say it. And if they care about keeping the military out of politics, they need to say something to keep this man out of the White House, because that's basically... Basically, this guy, yeah, he wants civilian control over the military, but he wants that civilian to be him and for his own purposes only, and not for those of of the United States of America, all of us, and its Constitution.
Indeed. I want to get one other thing.
Did I say too much there?
No, it's really great. Keep going. I'll let you know. I got a hook right back here. If you start going a little too long, I listen to that podcast you do with Sarah Longwell, and sometimes you just jab,
they just hit the button.
Like, is Sarah still there?
I know, we get all these letters there. You talk over Sarah too much. Like, but that's because she asked me questions.
But I have a legal question for you right now that's related to the Woodward book.
It's illegal.
The other thing that we've learned is that apparently, allegedly at least, he's having secret calls with Vladimir Putin, up to 7. We don't exactly know. Susan Rice got very mad at me when I was like, would we know if that was happening? And she was like, I'm not allowed to say. And I was like, but really, would we know? And she's like, next question, Tim. I was like, yes, ma'am.
I've seen all the Bourne movies, and they have listened to all of them. They know,
right? Yes. They would know. Okay, so assuming that's happening, there's some smart people out there, including Susan Rice, who are like, this is a violation of the Logan Act. And that kind of seems like a fake act to me. So is that true? Is that a violation of the Logan Act? Can we jail him over this?
It depends on what he's saying. If he's purporting to represent what the United States of America should be doing and would be doing under a Trump administration,
like what
I think that would... Well, maybe they're talking about... hotels on the Black Sea, and maybe even a building project on the Black Sea. I don't know. Maybe building a big wall. I don't know. So I don't know.
Could be talking about.
No, I mean, you have to wonder. And one of these days, and we're all going to be dead, but. Like, it'll be 60 or 70 years from now. Maybe you have kids who will get to see this. All the archives of these intelligence agencies throughout the world today are going to open up, and somebody's going to get to see what they thought of Donald Trump and how they thought they were manipulating him and could try to manipulate him.
And the transcripts of the calls are going to be so stupid. Like, people in the future are going to be like, why did they speak at a kindergarten level in 2024?
Could you imagine being the Russian translator trying to...
Very good. Very strongly. I very strongly want Vladimir Putin to do nice things for me. All right. What else do we got for you? The Psycho Pack that you're doing, talk to us about that. Anti-psychopath pack. You've been running some ads. Well, explain the pack, and then I want to talk about the ads.
I've been on this kick for 5-6 years now about basically the way you understand Donald Trump, and he becomes eminently predictable in a lot of ways, is by understanding the severe, clearly defined personality disorders that he has that are listed. And I was no expert in psychology. Now the shrinks tell me, you explain it better than we do. But
is that one of the signs of narcissistic personality disorder?
No one has explained narcissistic personality order better than me. Many people tell me this. Many people.
Yeah.
Many
Trump
people.
has 7 out of 7. George only has 4. I've got 3.
Okay. So,
Not a big deal.
But, you know, because I had no freaking clue about this. And I'm wondering, you know, I was offered the job of head of the Civil Division of the United States Department of Justice, becoming an assistant attorney general. And then I'm watching this shit show as it proceeds in early 2017. I actually was going over to the Justice Department to help pick the people who were going to work for me. And then I realized, I can't do this, particularly after the appointment of the special counsel by Rod Rosenstein, Mueller. I thought, like, okay, I'm going to join a department that this guy is going to be at war with for 2 years. And I decided not to do it. But I kept puzzling about it. What the fuck is wrong with this guy? And I was reading and I'd read and I'd think, and finally I came across an article in, of all places, Rolling Stone. And a very good writer named Alex Morris.
She's great.
She's great. She basically said, the title of the article was, "Does Donald Trump have narcissistic personality disorder?" And I'm reading like, what's that? And it has 9 criteria, and she went through the criteria, and it's like, oh, that's it. He only cares about himself. He has no empathy. And, you know, all these things, he likes to brag falsely about his imagined achievements. I mean, you're check, 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 check. And then I said, this is the key to understanding the guy. And so I started reading more, and then I saw, wait a minute, he's also a sociopath. He lies, uses aliases. Remember how he used to call up the media in New York?
Barron.
John Barron, John Miller.
Did he name his kid after his alias?
Yeah, he has.
That's really fucking weird.
Yeah. And, you know, and he has absolutely no remorse. The only time he ever expressed anything approaching remorse was when he said that, you know, he sort of apologized for the Billy Bush tape of what he said on there. And then 2 months later, after the election was over, he was saying, he literally told the New York Times that he was telling the United States senators that the tape was fake. Okay, I mean, so this guy just checks all the boxes. And it occurred to me as a lawyer, I kind of combined that with my understanding of the obligations of a president under Article 2, which is the founders viewed the presidency as a fiduciary position. In the same, you know, fiduciaries, I litigated that. I was a corporate lawyer. We did lots of litigation of corporate law in Delaware, and it's all about, its issue is fiduciary duties. You have, as a CEO, you have an obligation to work into the best interest of the country, not just line your pockets. Well, they do both. I mean, not in the best interest of the company. And this was the ultimate fiduciary position. And the question is, if someone who cares only about themselves and only uses everyone else and all the instruments of power around him to benefit himself, has no empathy, has no remorse, is incapable of telling you, how could that person possibly be a fiduciary? And the answer is he couldn't. So I wrote this long 11,000-word article that was published like five years ago in like 2 weeks. Yeah. And you know, that I've been on that kick ever since, because that's the way that Donald Trump makes sense only if you look at him through that prism.
And I think that from...
And the other point is that the people who have that...
We'll get to me in a minute. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I'm not an idiot. I talk a lot.
Yeah, you talk a lot. If you
I'll take another bourbon and Coke, though, when anybody gets a chance. No rush.
The people who, you know... The concept of narcissistic sociopathy, which is also described in some as malignant narcissism, and it's very closely related. I mean, that was a concept developed by a psychologist named Erich Fromm, whose family escaped Germany just before the onset of World War II, and he wanted to try to explain the minds of Hitlers and Stalins and all of these people. And it explains authoritarians. It explains that these personality characteristics are generally shared by authoritarians and cult leaders. And here we are.
It's important to bring in the Nazis, so I'm glad you added that that last point.
Yeah. So go back to psychopath. It was like,
as we think about this fifth race, but on the psychopath thing, because I want to get to the ads. I think the important political insight that was bred out of all of that 5 years later is how to bait him, and some of that is in the ads that you've been playing that I want to get to in 1 second. But first, the vice president's learned a little something about this, and just today, just a couple hours ago in Wisconsin, she had some protesters, and there was a very funny exchange that we're going to listen to now. Not really here live. That's just kind of how the podcast magic happens. So now you can see a little bit behind the scenes how this works. So I'll put that in. George.
that was amazing.
It was so amazing. It was so amazing. But what she said is, I think that you guys should be at the smaller rally down the street. And the crowd really enjoyed that. And she used it to very good effect at the debate in a way that frankly, none of the 15 Trump primary opponents did in 16, that Hillary didn't, and that Biden did, and Biden did some other things well. But she's used kind of the insights from combating a narcissism better than I think any of his other opponents. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And that's that's part of the drums I was. I've been beating for so long. And last year, I mean, at a little conference held by a competitor magazine.
Oh, we don't have any competitors. It's all good.
Okay,
it's all love.
No,
unless they're for Trump. Are they for Trump?
No.
As long as they're not for Trump, it's all good.
It was an anti-Trump summit. I was basically saying, you got to needle the guy. Because he's like, you remember the squirrel, the dogs in the movie Up? And whenever a character would say squirrel, they'd lose their shit. And they become completely dry. That's Donald Trump when it comes to any form of criticism. And that's why, we saw just like 2 weeks ago, he says, people are saying I fell into a trap at the debate. There was no trap. I didn't fall in a trap. And he's falling right into the trap again. So, he just cannot, once he hears a criticism, particularly if it is something, narcissists are very insecure, okay? They pretend to be the boldest and most courageous and the strongest and the most imperturbable people in the world, but they are driven by deep insecurity. And he has deep insecurity about a lot of things. This is one. He's insecure about his, whether he's...
That's another one.
Yeah, no, so anyway, there's nothing you can say about it. He's insecure about so many things. And if you keep poking him about it, he will talk about that. When he should be talking about the things that I am sure the Susie Wiles and all these people are telling him to talk about. You have to talk about immigration. You have to talk about economy. You have to talk about this. He can't help himself. And that was, the 4 objects of psychopath were 1, to point out the personality disorders that Trump has. 2 is to show why they're dangerous to the country. 3 is to get the media to talk about it, which they're finally a little bit starting to do. And the 4th was to trigger him into displaying these characteristics. And, what I'm so grateful for now is the Democrats figured some of this out. And that's what they did. As soon as they switched candidates, you saw some of that needling. And they're ramping it up again. I think they did it for a while just before the convention and after. It worked. And now they're bringing it up again. And we've seen his behavior lately. It is getting worse because these people, generally, narcissistic sociopaths, only get worse, okay? And as the more that they face adversity and criticism, they become more detached from reality. And we saw that with the swaying back and forth. We saw it when he's saying that all of Kamala's crowds that first week when she became the presumptive nominee. They were all AI, cats, dogs. You know, he is saying crazy shit by the hour. And I think that the Harris campaign is going back to that attack, and I hope they do for the last couple of weeks of the campaign, because she's, at least twice I've heard her say, he is increasingly unstable and unhinged.
Yes.
And I think that should be, I mean, I think you'll need a little positive, you know, you have to finish a campaign with a little positive note, which I think we saw a little of that yesterday. I thought that was just, I mean, I don't know if you saw the event up in Washington Crossing where she really was putting forth a vision for, you know, we're not going to be a unified country in the sense that we're all going to be agreeing on everything, but we agree that we live in a democracy where we need to work together, we need to compromise, we need to discuss things rationally, and we need to support whoever wins an election. And, you know, that's her positive message. She's going to be present for all the people. But leading up to the next 2 weeks, I think they really ought to hit hard. This is cuckoo.
Yeah, Cookie losing his marbles. All right, last topic.
He only had a couple to begin with.
I like the, are people familiar with these names? Natasha Stoyanov, Amy Doris, Jessica Leeds. Do we know their names? Yeah, not enough people. Why don't everybody give them a round of applause? They're in George's recent ads.
And E. Jean.
And E. Jean Carroll. Everybody's going to know E. Jean, so I wasn't going to make my point. I want to play one of those ads now. We're going to do the thing again. And here's the thing. I've been on this for a while, and it pissed me off, honestly, during the first Trump administration, that I think that there was this conventional wisdom that sunk in that, like, when he won after the grab him by the you-know-what video, people were like, well, people don't care about the sexual assaults anymore, so we're not going to talk about it in the media. It was like my one real big media criticism from the first term. And I'm like, that's not true, because more information came out about Summer Zervos, about Amy Doris, and some of these as the administration went on, and they just didn't get the attention they deserved. And I'm happy you're running those ads. So just talk to us a bit about those ads and what you're trying to get out of them.
I mean, it was born of an idea. I tried in 2019, 2020, I tried to organize, I tried to get a documentary film made of all the women. Because I thought, you know, after reading all about them, I thought that if you laid their stories back to back and side by side, you know, there's just no question he did it, right? Because the two things that we learned during the Me Too episodes about what kind of brings, you know, a sexual assault or harassment situation often can be just two people in a room and you know it's a swearing match. But the things that prove these cases in a court of law or a court of public opinion or in the newspapers is there a pattern? Because we know these guys never do this just once. And the second is the contemporaneous testimony or statements of the people who heard the victim express shock and sorrow and anger and frustration soon after it happened. And so I thought it would be great to basically do a documentary that would do as many of the women as possible. The problem, I mean, and I had a guy interested in it, the guy who did the whose name escapes me around, but he did the baseball one about the Bartman catch.
Oh yeah, that was really good.
Yeah, but he couldn't get funding for it because everybody was terrified to do it. HBO wouldn't fund it. They couldn't fund it. And then that idea had always stuck with me. And with Psychopac, I mean, this is this behavior, not just the sexual assault, but the continual lying and maligning of his victim, E. Jean Carroll and the others, that it cost him $83 million additional dollars.
All right.
Because he kept lying about her. the punitive damages. I forgot what they were, but it was like he absolutely has no compunction. His lies were patently ridiculous. I never met her. Excuse me, there was a photograph. Okay, he's accused of rape, and his answer is, she's not my type. Yeah, so it occurred to me, like, let's just do testimonials. Let's just do as many of them as we can, and I wish we had more time. And we did 3 of them. We couldn't do E. Jean because E. Jean has 2 appeals in the Second Circuit where she's got $88.3 million riding on us. But we used some clips from her to do.
I thought it was actually good that it was people that folks
they were free
with.
people. People hadn't seen before, and we tested those. Sarah's people tested those, and they were very effective, even among Trump voters. And I wish I had, 20 more millions of dollars, and you'd be watching. You'll be seeing it on Channel 6 here. And I'm glad we did that. I wish we could do more. But every little vote counts. So.
We appreciate it. Hometown boy, George Conway. Sorry about the Sixers. Never quite happens for the Sixers, Never quite get there. Poor Joel Embiid. But I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
We'll be seeing you tomorrow. And up next, Sarah Matthews. Give it up for George. Looking at my notes here, did not get to talk to him about a couple of things I wanted to because he just has a lot to say. Hey, it's Sarah Matthews. Did you know that Justin Trudeau said today under oath that Tucker Carlson is getting Russia money? Justin Trudeau said that today under oath. That's a news item we're going to be following. All right, let's do the podcast. And we're back with Sarah Matthews. You guys might know Sarah Matthews. She worked in the Trump administration, but that's okay. She was young and still young.
I joke. I was 25 when I resigned from the Trump White House. It was my frontal lobe had finally developed. Okay, cut me some slack.
And you walked out on what day?
A little day called January 6th.
Yeah, you walked out on January 6th, and you and Alyssa are like, we are leaving, and everybody's coming behind us. And you turned around, and who was there?
Like Elaine Chao, but...
And she doesn't count.
Yeah, I was like, she kind of waffled on it too, I think,
yeah,
afterwards.
I don't think, we're not counting Elaine Chao.
Yeah, there
sorry.
weren't many. I think we definitely all thought that there would be waves of people following us, and sadly not the case, but...
I do this every time we talk, but I think it's important. Like, that is crazy. That is crazy when you think about it. I mean, you're 25 years old. Alyssa's whatever, early 30s. And Cassidy, when she eventually comes forward, is about your age. It's Mark Meadows' assistant. And everybody saw it. Everybody saw what happened. There was no question about his role, or that it was his fault, or that he sat there watching TV while it happened. And at the end of the day, when there's an entire government full of people, where there's an entire cabinet full of mostly men, besides Elaine Chao, and there's an entire cabinet of men, and there's a chief of staff, and all of these senior advisors around him, and at the end of the day, it's just you and Alyssa and Cassidy. Isn't that just crazy? Isn't that crazy to you? Like, why you? Have you thought about that? Do you think about that in bed at night ever? Why just me? Why not Mark Meadows? Why not Mick Mulvaney? Why not? We could do the whole fucking list.
Yeah, I think that it's a conversation Alyssa, Cassidy, and I have had often, and we all talk about our motivations of why we chose to speak out, and it boils down to, I think, because we are women, and none of us are fortunate enough to have children yet. Cassidy and I are both still single, so need a husband first. But
all right, hey boys, anybody out there? We'll be hanging out afterwards.
But the three of us have spoke about how there will come a day when we will be lucky enough to have children, and we want to be able to look our children in the eyes and tell them that their moms did the right thing and stood up.
Yeah. I joke, Alyssa said that to me when I interviewed Alyssa for the book, and we were a little drunk, which is a key strategy if any of you want to do reporting for books in the future. But she got emotional. It was very emotional. We were like in her living room, and it was very emotional on this topic, you know. And I feel the same way. And though it does kind of raise the next question, which is, do these people have children? You know what I mean? And it's just like, you knew all of them. You worked with all of them. Like, the disappointment on a personal level had to be pretty crushing.
Yeah, and I can't speak to certain people's motivations,
Sure.
but, I hold the most contempt, I think, for the Republican elected officials because they're there to serve their constituents, and what do? They're lying to them. Privately, they're saying all these things that I'm saying publicly, and it's just unfortunate because they'd rather prioritize their own power than telling the American people the truth about the type of man that they know Donald Trump to be.
Yeah. And also, because this was supposed to be one question, but I'm riling myself up every time we talk about this topic. But it's like, the other thing is, all of them are fine. Like, this is the thing that drives me crazy. I talked to Kinzinger about this. They are Congress people. Like, they would be fine if they resigned. They would want to be on boards. People would have them. Their kids are grown, and a lot of times their career, they've achieved things in their career. Like, it was you guys, actually, that had more to lose.
Yeah.
Like, you had your career in front of you. You're 25, and like, so in some ways, I think like it was more risky for you than it was for them.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think, like, I look back on it, I was 25 when I resigned. I was 27 when I testified before the January 6th committee. I'm 29 today. But my dear friend Cassidy Hutchinson was even younger than I was when she was thrust into that position. She was 25 when she testified. And yeah, we had our whole careers ahead of us. We were clearly on trajectories that if we had just kind of stayed silent and gone along to get along, then we'd maybe have some, position right now in, whatever office. But then I think to myself, like, do I really want that position anyways? No.
Hell no.
No, I don't
Your
want
soul would be withering.
Yeah.
You'd be putting out a statement from Mitch McConnell today about how J.D. Vance said worse things than he did.
Exactly. So it's like, at the end of the day, like, I know that, maybe it's I don't know what their motivations are. Like I said, I can only surmise that to me it looks like that they're power hungry. But I knew that I wouldn't be able to look myself in the mirror if I didn't speak out and do the right thing. And so ever since resigning on January 6th and moving forward, I've tried to right that wrong of kind of working for Donald Trump. Because I will say, I think that there is, some cognitive dissonance there of, like, I went to go work for him knowing that he wasn't a good man. But I wanted to do right by our country. I wanted him to be surrounded by people of good character. And at a certain point, then you kind of start to convince yourself, like, oh, well, he can't be that bad because you don't want to feel bad for having gone to work for him.
Yes.
And so obviously it came to a breaking point for myself where I couldn't keep lying to myself. I mean, I sat there in the West Wing on January 6th, watched as aides pleaded with him, begging for him to call off the mob, and he didn't lift a finger. And so my job as a spokesperson for him would have been to defend that, and to me it was indefensible. So I made the decision to resign fairly easy.
He can never be in there again.
Nope.
One more thing on January 6th while we're at it. He's been saying this, but it becomes more news. So you saw the town hall at Univision last night, and where he talks about how it was a day of love, but he also does this thing that he's slipped and done a couple times, but it was worse yesterday than it has been. Talking about where he's defending himself to the questioner, and he said we didn't have guns, which is a lie, but aside, we didn't have guns. They had guns. And when you think about that for a second, it's like, who's the they that had guns? It's the Capitol Police.
Yeah.
And the we is the people attacking the police. That was him yesterday. That's him in 2024. He still thinks that the mob is on his side and that the people defending the Capitol are the enemy within. That's insane.
No, it's actually certifiably insane. I do want to say that the guy who asked him the question at that town hall, awesome question, probably the hardest question. I want the press to find that guy because he started off this question by saying, "Look, I voted for you in the past. You lost my vote because of January 6th now. Can you win it back? Explain this to me." And Trump goes on to call it a day of love and then says that yeah, and to me, January 6th was one of the darkest days in our nation's history. I mean, it's a stain. on America. And so for him to say that, it just goes to show that like he hasn't learned anything, because like I think back to on January 6th when he released the video message from the Rose Garden. He said to the I shouldn't call them protesters, rioters, sorry, my bad. Let me correct myself. But rioters, he says to them, "We love you, you're very special." And that really stuck out to me, because he didn't try to differentiate between the people who were peacefully protesting on the ellipse and those that we saw storm the Capitol and brutally assault police officers. No, he was referring to those people. And so it shows that he's learned nothing. He has no remorse for what happened. He feels no accountability that maybe he's responsible for what happened. And then he thinks of them as his people. That's why he said we. And it just shows that like he's learned nothing. And it's mind-boggling to me then the Republican elected officials who whitewashed the events of that day. Because it'd be one thing if Donald Trump admitted any wrongdoing, but we know that he's not capable of doing that. And so, yeah, I think I would love for the press to find the guy who asked that question, see if Trump changed his mind and convinced him to support him again. Because I can assure you that it was one of the worst answers, just like from a communicator standpoint, like having worked in communications and politics, it was one of the worst answers I've ever seen in a town hall. I mean, there's no way in hell he won that guy's vote back. I mean, the guy's face was even like, what? Like, he even looked, he didn't even seem to try, because if he had maybe shown any amount of remorse, maybe, but he's just not capable of it.
Pretended to.
Yeah, and I mean, it just shows like he wanted those people at the Capitol that day because he thought that they were fighting for him to stay in power. That's what he wanted. He didn't care about what happened. I mean, we know from the January 6th committee that he was passed a note that said that one of his supporters had been shot, and he didn't care. He didn't lift a finger, even one of his own people.
All right. I can like feel my heart beating in my chest right now. I'm getting so
Sorry,
fucking
I don't mean
mad.
to anger
No, I'm just getting
everyone.
so mad. I get so mad. So let's talk about something happy really quick. I just want to talk about your experience with Liz Cheney. I kind of want to build a statue to her right now.
Same.
I couldn't even like. It's crazy to me that it's just like Adam and Liz and Mark Cuban out there, like doing everything, and like we're doing our part over here. But it's like, is there nobody else? But you've gotten to have like some personal, right? Because you had to talk to her about testifying and getting you comfortable to testify, and you guys had an event together the other day. Was it last week? Times of Flat Circle last week. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, just kind of talk about what Liz has meant to you and how the experience has been dealing with her one-on-one.
Yeah, I think you would think she'd be really intimidating just looking at her. I mean, she's this badass woman.
By her.
Yeah, exactly. I think I was too. The first conversation I had with her when I was sitting down with her privately for the January 6th committee, because I was sympathetic to their cause, obviously, when the committee was stood up. But it was a little nerve-wracking. I mean, I had worked in Republican politics my whole career. This was a majority Democrat committee. She was one of the only Republicans. And she took the time out of her day to have a private one-on-one meeting with me in a secret office inside the basement of the Capitol. And we sat there for like 5 hours and just talked. And it didn't leak to the media that I had gone and met with her. And so it built trust there, because I hadn't met her prior to that. And then the more I've gotten to know her, she is just such she's funny, very funny.
No.
And I mean it. Jokes? Yeah, I mean, you saw the joke she made when she came out for the Harris event, where she joked about, what was it? It was, she's been a Republican longer than Donald Trump's been spray tanning.
Oh, that was pretty good. That was good. That felt like somebody wrote it for her, though. She's got her own jokes.
She's got a great sense of humor.
One of these days, I'll find out.
She's very warm and just a good-hearted person, and so genuine. And so you just see that this has been such a tough road for her. I mean, she could be the Speaker of the House right now if she wanted to be. Yes. But you know what? She was in Republican leadership, and she could have just, sat silently and let everything transpire. But she knew because she's a patriot and she loves this country, she knew she couldn't sit by and And I just have such respect for her. I mean, she's got bigger balls than all the male members of Congress combined. And I'm really proud and honored to know her. And I think she's just been such like a guiding light for myself and Cassidy Hutchinson and Alyssa Farah Griffin and the other women who have spoken out against Trump. And just really honored to know her.
I'm happy. We're going to create a little Harlan Crow sculpture garden. Like, she's going to have the biggest sculpture. You have a little one. You have a very little one.
I'll take it. I'll take it. If I'm anywhere near her, I'll take it. I won't complain.
All of the heroes. All right, last question. I have a gimmick that I asked you, but I'm actually particularly interested in your answer to this because you worked for Trump. And I feel like sometimes some of us never-Trumpers who have been never-Trumpers for 10 years now, like our brains are getting pickled. But the most important question I get from people, I got this on Twitter today, actually, so I'll send this to this guy. He said, I have a sister, I think it was a sister, in Pennsylvania, and she's a conservative. She's a Republican. She's always been a Republican, but she doesn't like Trump. And I'm trying to nudge her to actually vote for Harris and do what you guys are doing. What is the best argument I can make to try to convince her? So I want to hear what you think the best argument would be.
All right, I guess this would be my elevator pitch then. On January 6th, Donald Trump, we know from Jack Smith's filing, was told by a White House aide that his own VP had been moved to a secure location because of everything that was happening at the Capitol. The vice president was there with his family that day. And what was Donald Trump's reaction? He said, so what? This is a man who lacks empathy. He is a man of the lowest moral character. And I just think that if he didn't care about his own VP's life being in danger, what makes you think he cares about you? And so there's a little more.
Keep going. I'm letting you roll.
Thank you. And I know that Kamala Harris isn't perfect. I have never voted for a Democrat a day in my life, but I believe that she is a good person. I believe she is someone who will uphold her oath of office. And so, there can come a day where we will disagree about policy, and I'm not probably going to like everything in her agenda, but she's not going to light the Constitution on fire. And so I understand the hesitation. I mean, like I said, I've never voted for a Democrat either, but in my eyes, I'm just sick and tired of making excuses for Donald Trump because of policy. That's the excuse I often hear from people. Because you know what? I think that the Constitution and character matter too, and I'm tired of Trump. Like you said, it's been 10 years of dealing with this, and I think it's finally time for us to turn the page, and she's our best shot at it.
Amen. Are you excited to vote for her? Like to go in and do it in person? Are you going to go in person, or have you already done it?
I have my absentee ballot, but
It's sitting on your kitchen table?
It's sitting on my kitchen counter. I haven't filled it out yet, actually, but I thought about maybe going in person. I've always voted absentee, which I don't know why. I just always have. But I'm like, maybe this time I'll go in person because, get the rush of it.
Yeah, but amen. All right, that's Sarah Matthews. Thank you, everybody. Yeah. All right, we'll be on the bus together, me and Sarah, so I'll see you in a little bit. Thank you so much. All right, that was the Bulwark Podcast. We'll be back on Monday with somebody named Bill Crystal. And in a minute, everybody will be out here. So just give me 1 second to get another drink.
Why is everybody standing up? Come on. We're back. We're back.
Go Tigers. All right, you're on the end. I'm taking the comfy chair, Eggs. I've earned it.
We were trying to find another microphone, but we're gonna share. Bill and I are gonna share.
Me and Egg are going to share.
Yeah, we're good.
I'm not sharing with anyone.
Hey guys, it's JVL. Hey. It's my best friend. Come on.
So I got to tell you guys, I grew up about 15 minutes across the river in South Jersey.
Boo. You know, if enough college-educated whites moved from South Jersey across the river, we wouldn't be in this fucking problem right now. So take that, Cherry Hill.
And
Sorry, Cherry Hill. Is that you?
Yeah.
You're hurting democracy. You got to do one extra shift on the doors. One extra shift on the doors for you.
You could just take everybody in Collingswood and move. No, but what I was going to say is I used to come here to the TLA for shows all the damn time. I saw the Posies, I saw the Ocean Blue, I saw Sean Colvin
Vampire
here,
Weekend
I think.
here.
Yeah, no, I never did Rocky Horror. Anyway, so it is utterly surreal for me to be sitting on the stage at the TLA, not at a rock show. And by the way, my kid, G Money, is upstairs in a green room sitting on a sofa. And I thought to myself, this is the most innocent thing that has ever happened on the sofa in the green room at the TLA. And anyway, it's just great. Thank you guys all for coming out. Thank you for going through this with us. As I said, I'm JVL here with many of my best friends, Tim Miller, Sarah Longwell, Bill Crystal, and the boy genius, Andrew Egger. So Bill and Sarah, you guys met with Kamala Harris. What was it like? What was it like watching Kamala cook?
That's Madam Vice President to you,
Okay.
JVL. This is why we couldn't take JVL there, you know? It's like, you know, Sarah and I were well behaved.
He was like, who is JVL? No, sorry.
No, actually,
What's
the White
a JVL?
He was on the original list, but the White House staff said, no, that's a bridge too far, you know? Jim Swift, Sarah Longwell, that's okay, but JVL, no way. Well, she was great. She was very, so we were at this Republicans for Harris event yesterday in Washington Crossing, which is a very pretty place, incidentally. Yeah, very nice up there in Bucks County. A lot of Trump signs, I got to say, though, in that area. Little worrisome. And she gave a very good speech. Really an impressive, moderate, Bulwark-like speech. You know, Trump's a threat to the Constitution. We need to come together, Republicans and Democrats, bipartisan. It was good. But before that, there was a photo opportunity, and Jim and Sarah and I were in one little group that went to, have our photo taken with the vice president. The Bulwark people. I love the way the White, and she's vice president as well as being a candidate, so you get that kind of White House formality, so that someone calls out your name and they've got you in a certain order, and so she can hear you. So she recognized us, and she knew about the Bulwark, and we had a pleasant little chat about. It's funny. So she saw me, I would say.
She recognized Bill.
No, she recognized. No. She went on with Sarah about some focus group with some Nevada voters. No, I'm kidding. She's kind of busy running for president, so she doesn't have time to watch focus group. But so she's kind of, I could tell. So we had a very pleasant, quick chat. How's it going? Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being Republicans for Harris, and thank you for doing such a good job on the campaign. And we really are rooting for you. And then we had a brief discussion about. She saw me, and I think. She saw me and thought foreign policy. That's he's the guy who started those wars and stuff back in the. So we had a nice discussion about global leadership for about.
Boy, we're all family now.
For about a minute, yeah. And then it was kind of, I could tell, okay, enough of this. There are other people in the photo line. Let's have the photos. I said, Madam Vice President, thank you so much. And then what happened? I can't remember. Then Sarah stole the show. So you talk.
Bill was like, let's go win this thing. And she's like, yeah, I'm going to do my best. And I was like, hey, nobody hates this guy more than us. and she was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, suddenly Sarah was telling the truth. We were in this kind of fake high-tone discussion about global leadership and really important. So much is at stake in this election.
So that's
cool.
Great. Sarah,
she was good.
No,
she was good, right?
That, Sarah.
Sarah, she was good, right?
She's
very
excellent.
good in this wall. I'd say, in eye contact and being interested in us and so forth. It was semi-authentic, I thought.
Yeah, she was. It was great.
All right, so I want to start by just taking everybody's temperature. What is your level of panic? Sarah, you first.
Oh, you're going to start with me?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, that's good. Start with the good news first, because I'm calm. I'm good. Sarah's always right. Exactly. I'm always right, and I'm here to tell you that, it's probably going to be okay. And it's going to be okay because of Pennsylvania. Right? It's it, man. We're the ball game. And so and women, we're going to talk about that a little bit. But I think, look, I don't want to get ahead of myself in terms of what we're going to talk about, but I'll just say this is my bottom line is two things. One, I think independents are going to break at the end for her because she is the new change candidate, and that's the way they go. And the second thing is that if I was going to stake my campaign on something, I would not do it on like young men who listen to Joe Rogan's podcast. And it's not a slag on men, it's a slag on young men who listen to Joe Rogan's podcast. I would stake an election on women, their turnout, their level of enthusiasm, the fact that there are more of them in existence, and the fact that they vote at a higher rate.
You know, that's all very nice, but I would feel better if we had an extra 70,000 lesbians under 5'4" in Pennsylvania. I mean, that's...
Start a cult, Sarah.
Eggs, what's your panic level, buddy?
I mean, not to get too dark after that very inspiring speech, but I think my personal panic level is a little bit abstracted from the question of, like, is Harris going to win in a squeaker or is Trump going to win in a squeaker, because of all of the horrible stuff that is likely to ensue either way in the immediate term. 6 months from now, a Kamala Harris win is great. 2 months from now, a Kamala Harris win might be pretty scary. I mean, if it's very close in a lot of these states, which, I mean, people have been talking a lot about January 6th a lot tonight. Donald Trump is not hiding any of that stuff this time around. And his people think he is a lock to win, which is really alarming, right? I mean, so I've mostly just been trying to, do a lot of disassociating. I keep my head down. Sam Stein works me really hard to write the morning newsletter with Bill, so that helps a little bit. I just fall asleep out of fatigue at night and don't stay up worrying.
Tim, I had a question just before you get to your panic level.
Sure.
Can you do a little psychoanalysis for me? Because...
Self-analysis?
No.
Oh, that's a place I don't want to go.
Republican voters. So, Kamala Harris is leading in the polling averages, has been for weeks at this point. And I get the sense that the percentage of Kamala Harris voters who are absolutely certain she's going to be victorious is like what? Like this big, right? And then you go over to Trump, who's lost the popular vote in 2 straight elections, lost by 5-7 million votes in the last election, has been trailing Harris, and they're all just like, oh, he's fucking got this. Oh, he's got this. What? Why?
Yeah, I can field this one. The psychoanalysis. So there's 2 groups of Republicans. The people who you just did an impression of. It's like kind of a part orangutan, part human type thing, I assume, is the people that attend Trump rallies. And they live in like a hermetically sealed bubble where the only information they receive is about how the Orange God King is wonderful and everything is great. Kamala Harris is stupid. And so they still think he won the last one. So why would they think he's going to lose this one? He lost the last one. They think he won. They've seen the results. So I don't see any reason why this would be different. Then you have the difference between the kind of more, beltway-ish or elite Republicans versus elite Democrats. Elite Democrats are panicked because they're deeply concerned that Donald Trump wins. And they're worried legitimately about what would happen to the country. It has very little to do about the polls, somewhat, but it's more about their genuine concern over Trump. Elite Republicans are not panicked because they don't actually care. It'd probably be better for them if Trump loses, frankly, unless they want a good job and unless they're like angling for a White House job, right? So, like, there's no, like, why would you have psychological torment when, like, on balance, it'd be better for you if Kamala Harris wins and then you can go take a job for J.D. Ron DeSanctimonious's 2028 campaign, or what Glenn Youngkin, hope springs eternal for Glenn Youngkin 2028. So I think that explains the psychology. As far as myself, my panic level is, the only way I can do it is for 76ers fans in the room. It's like about at the same level. It's like if Joel Embiid has the ball and he knows that he needs to make the shot to win the game, he looks very nervous. And my nerves are about at Joel Embiid level. Like, totally panic. I know we're not actually going to win, and I want someone else to have the ball. So I'm happy that Kamala has the ball and not me, because I'm deeply panicked right now. And the podcast quality is going to start to reflect that.
It's him breathing into the microphone, going, like a paper bag.
Bill, what is your panic level? You look pretty cool and collected.
Yeah, I'm panicking in a cool and collected way. That's really the best way to panic. I mean, I was struck last night talking to a couple of people who do politics, Democratic politics here in Pennsylvania, who made one point that cheered me up. I said the democracy stuff, the January 6th stuff, the peaceful transfer of power, it just doesn't, it's unbelievable that he can be getting 48% of the vote after all of that, and it just doesn't seem to resonate. And both of these people, Tim and I were there, said maybe more in a state like Pennsylvania, because you guys actually experienced up close in 2020 the effort to steal your votes, the effort to deny the majority of Pennsylvanians the actual result that you all had voted for. And I wonder if at the close, what Trump tried to do in stealing the election will have more effect in Pennsylvania, Georgia, maybe Arizona, the states where he really did. You guys, right? It was must have been the top news story for 6 weeks after the election. 4 seasons, gardening and all. For the rest of it, what is that play? Landscaping, yeah. Why aren't we meeting there? Shouldn't that be that would be.
We should have done it there.
We should have done it there. I mean, the rest of us watched that.
Let's swing the bus by in the morning. Megan, we got time for that?
The rest of us watched that and thought it was just funny. But you guys, I mean, you're living 4 seasons landscaping, right? No, but I wonder if in the swing states, at the end, there's a little bit of we cannot go through this again. I mean, he tried to steal our votes, and we're not going to let it happen this time. So I'm counting on you guys here in Pennsylvania to come through.
Here, let me ask you guys something. You're all from here, more or less. Okay, so tell me, if you are panicked on 1 to 10, if you are at a 5 or above, no wait. If you're at an 8 or above on panic, clap. Yeah. If you're at an 8 or below, clap. Are you who's at a 5 or below? Yeah. Who's sure Kamala's going to win Pennsylvania?
All right.
Oh, so you got my Xanax.
Is there a different podcast song you've been listening to that you could recommend to me?
All right, so I want to talk a little bit about Bret Baier, who's a very serious newsman. Very serious newsman.
He's been doing some good things with his face, I think. I mean, it's some very interesting
he and Kristi Noem have the same duck.
It's crazy. It's like, what is happening? It's a force of nature, that skin.
So,
don't you think?
We don't comment about people's appearance.
That's Bret Baier's.
So, I mean, first of all, do we have any thoughts? We now have viewership numbers. It did slightly more viewers than her 60 Minutes interview last week did, slightly less than Biden's interview on CNN after the debate implosion. My sense is that the really important thing is that for a day, everybody talked about how she went on Fox. And anytime people are talking about Kamala Harris, it's good. Is this wrong? I mean, and she did fine, right? No, but I mean, this is not Yas Queen world. We don't all say everything she did is amazing. This isn't the Beyonce thing, but
we love Beyonce.
No, I know you do, but Do you know what I'm saying? Like, but she was fine, right?
So I think one thing that we're all just kind of starting to realize about this election is how much more fragmented the media ecosystem is, even then in 2020, to say nothing of 2016, which is why you've seen both Trump and Harris go on all these podcasts and things, because you're just finding new people there, people who would not have seen anything from even the big tentpole interviews like 60 Minutes, or even like a big primetime interview with Brett Baer. But at least Baer is a different kind of audience than she's been getting before, and it's an audience that has been primed this entire cycle to see her as essentially like a subhuman, like 65 IQ, needs to have questions fed to her in order to even be able to articulate human sentences, right? And so just by going on there and holding her own, obviously there's not a ton of upside when every question is an ambush, right? When it's one attempt to pick apart her record or Biden's record after another. But it was a proof of concept, right? She got up there and she fought him to a draw at least. She even got in a couple of really good punches. And I think... And I do think that the most important thing, now that she has shown that she can do that, I really do think, we're kind of running out of time here, but she should use that as proof of concept to do some of these other things. I mean, like, she's done a bunch of these podcasts, but they have been podcasts that have been kind of toward her people, right? She should go on Joe Rogan. There are a lot of dumber right-wing guys than Brett Baer out there who will give her an interview where there's a lot more upside for her to actually land a lot more punches, because they won't be as disciplined, they'll be more conversational. I think she should do Joe Rogan. That's the biggest thing for me for the next couple weeks.
So very quickly, I mean, let's just go around the horn here. What should the campaign be doing for the next 3 weeks? Because this is it, right? I mean, we had 21 days. People are already voting. Every day that goes by, a larger percentage of the total vote will already be in, and so your ability to change votes gets smaller as we go. Bill or Sarah,
well,
you
let
guys
me just on this particular point. As the days goes on, right? People who are rushing out to vote. Charlie Dent, he knew he was going to go vote for Kamala Harris, right? And he went out there and he voted early, right away. The people who are going to stand, and I listen to these guys in focus groups do this. They're like, I just stood there with my ballot and said, "Oh, I just don't know." And
they're both so good.
Why can't they both win?
Yeah. I just think as the days go on, the more important it is to go into non-traditional venues for people who haven't made up their mind, and not just haven't made their mind up between the two candidates, but haven't made up their mind who they're going to vote for. I did a focus group of Pennsylvania voters recently, and I got to tell you, this is the good news. It was a clean sweep for Harris on the swing voters. It was. I haven't had a clean sweep in a while for Harris from the flippers, and so it felt really good to have it in Pennsylvania. But I got to say, some of the reasons we heard, one woman who was sort of a suburban mom type, very lovely woman, said that her daughter had been given a coloring book about Kamala Harris, and that was the totality of the information she had, and she was voting for her. And so...
That doesn't actually make me feel better.
My point is...
Do we have any RVAT money left over? Can you start sending that coloring book out to Luzerne County?
My point is that for these, that part of being an undecided voter is also being undecided about whether or not you're going to vote, right? Whether or not you care enough to vote. And so I think she's got to keep going in these non-traditional spaces right now in order to reach those people who are like, I didn't care, but then I heard her on something I listened to and she sounded great, and now I'm going to vote for her. That's what she needs to do.
Yeah.
Can I just, my only qualification of that would be, you know what people do watch still, though, is paid advertising on football games, if you're a man mostly, and on other shows that women watch.
You got booed right there, Bill. Girls love football. You just got booed.
Okay, fine. Watch football. Watch the Eagles. You can't watch the Phillies anymore because my Mets beat them. I'm just going to say.
There you go. So. Full heel turn. Full heel turn. Yes.
Get the batteries, Philly.
I'll excuse myself. That's okay, you know. She needs. I think she has been a good candidate, better than I expected. She deserves to win. Her campaign has been very good, in my view, with one caveat. I think her ads are sort of, they were good at the beginning to introduce her, the bio stuff. She cares about the middle class. That kind of ran out of steam a couple of weeks ago, but I'm not sure they've really pivoted quite yet. They're finally going a little more negative on Trump. They really need to do that. And Trump's ads have been brutal, and people like us hate them and think they're horribly demagogic and irresponsible and cruel and bitter. But I have a good friend in Western Pennsylvania who's watched them now for 3 or 4 weeks on Steelers games and so forth. And he's got relatives who are saying, I don't know, they didn't do anything on the border, and now they want to pay for these operations for trans prisoners.
It's a critical kitchen table issue in Western Pennsylvania.
Well, but I'm worried about the paid media. And it's funny, we don't talk about it. We think, well, if you go on Joe Rogan or you go on Brett Baier, a lot of people watch Steelers games and Eagles games, right? Yeah. And you can try to skip the ads, but it's not so easy to. So I'm a little worried. If I were on the worrying side, which I'm not because I'm calm and collected, of course, I worry about paid media. So.
I share your worry. I'm just teasing you. The paid media could be a little tougher for me. And I think that's right. Like, I think that she needs to go, like, the people that you're trying to talk to right now, let's just think about that for a second. In some ways, it's a little scary, actually. If you looked at the Wisconsin undecided poll, this guy, Charles Franklin's really good. And he's like, I just went deep on the people who said that they're undecided. Half of them are basically Nikki Haley Republicans, so not puffing her. So, like, it's not just out of the good charity of Kamala and David Plouffe's heart that she had a Liz Cheney event here yesterday, right? Like, they're seeing the same data that the Wisconsin guy's seeing, that there are, and that's why they went on Brett Baier, right? Because there is a group of people that are traditionally Republicans, that are college educated, middle to high income, that are on the fence. They can't decide what to do. And there's another group of undecideds, too, we can talk about, but this is our expertise, and which is about half of the group left. And, like, they have to do two things with them. One, fucking scare them about Donald Trump. Like, Donald Trump is just, like, sink in with them. Like, everything you hate about this man, think about him unchecked with the Supreme Court and 82 years old. 4 years older than he is right now. Like, every marble dropping out, one per month. Like, do you want this guy sitting in the Oval with the Pillow Man and Stephen Miller?
Just sitting there going, YOLO, YOLO, yeah.
October 2028? I don't. And I don't think Charlie Dent's buddies want that either, which is why Charlie voted for Kamala Harris, which is great. But I got scaring them about the prospect of the worst case scenario of Trump is important. And I think continuing to introduce to the coloring book situation. And this is, I think, our criticism of the ads. Introduce new things about Kamala. Like, do a new ad that's like, hey, did you know that she, like, whatever, jailed this rapist back in 2015 when she was the DA? Like, introduce new things that they will like to hear about her. New information about Kamala is still possible. It's not Joe Biden. That's the nice thing about having her. And I think she was improving in her favorability because people were learning new shit about her for a while, and that's kind of plateaued. So introduce a couple new things about Kamala and freak people out about Trump is my advice.
I'll also just add one of the things about when I think they were doing really well, when they had Tim Walz was auditioning and he did his Weird tour, right? They got them focused on the high-level narrative, right? There's something that people already believe. Good advertising is about getting people it reminds them of something they already believe. And people already think, oh, yeah, this guy sucks, and he's weird, and it's nuts, and, and he's too old. But if you try to go issue by issue with them, you talk about immigration, you talk about the economy, people start to slide back. You got to go back to that high-level thing that people are like, oh, yeah, I can't do it. This is too crazy, and he sucks. And I will say, in terms of those numbers in Wisconsin, you know who's doing a lot of advertising in these states? Who's that? I think Republican voters against Trump is spending $40 million on ads.
Just really quick, I have just some news for you. So Trump did the interview on Patrick Bet David. Do you know Patrick Bet David? Just thank your fucking lucky stars if you've never heard that name before.
I haven't.
And just let it go in one ear and out the other because he's awful. Anyway, I was listening to the podcast before I took a nap this afternoon a couple hours ago. And in the middle of the podcast, it was like, hey, I'm Jim from Pennsylvania. And I've been a Republican my whole life, and I'm a welder. And I was like, I can't vote for this asshole. And I was like, that's interesting. And I kind of woke up from my days like, this was paid for Republican voters against Trump. And I was like, yeah. All right.
That's right.
So it's hitting.
JVL, one thing on the last couple weeks' strategy, and it's not about Harris, it's about Trump. And what's actually one thing that I have found kind of heartening, because you mentioned the Haley Republicans, right? These are like a lot of the swing voters. Nikki Haley could be out on the trail for Donald Trump right now. She could be everywhere. She could be in all these swing states. She would do it. She has said that she would do it. They're not calling her to do it. And the reason why they're not calling her to do it is because if she were to do these events for Trump, she would be talking about Donald Trump in the same way that people like us talk about Kamala Harris. Like, oh, we've had our differences, we've had our problems in the past, I don't love this, I don't love that, but gosh darn it, you gotta go out and support Donald Trump. And he can't have that on his team. He does not want those people in his tent. And so I think that, we talk so much about, we weep and wail and gnash our teeth about how his personality, doesn't hurt him at all, it seems like. But this is a way in which if Kamala Harris pulls this out, you could maybe look back, these Haley Republicans, if they break Kamala, because Donald Trump left Nikki Haley on the bench and people like her on the bench and didn't go aggressively after their vote in that way, that could hurt him in the next couple weeks here.
And I would just say one last thing for the last 2 weeks.
Is it boo Nikki Haley? Because that's what I want to say right now.
Okay, that was well said, though. Very well said. Dobbs, they have to close on Dobbs. They have not lost, the Democrats have not lost an election in which abortion rights was the central issue since the Dobbs decision. It was big here in Pennsylvania in 2022. And she just needs, this is part of really making it about Trump. If you want more Supreme Court justices to go further in that direction, if you want to have contraception threatened, if you want to have gay marriage threatened, and they need to really go there. They can't be just sort of very vague, general. It would be alarming to the constitutional systems if they were more. It needs to be your rights are going to be taken away. And incidentally, they could be if Trump is president for 4 more years and he gets 2 Supreme Court appointments and many lower court appointments, et cetera, and they don't care about the rule of law anyway, and they've got the Just Project 2025, and tariffs are going to make you poorer. They've just got to hammer away that Trump will hurt you in very concrete ways, and he will.
He would get at least 3.
Raising panic level over here, listening to Bill talk about the things that will happen in Donald Trump's second term.
He would get at least 3 Supreme Court justices and possibly a 4th. I've done the math on this. But I do want to talk about the Trump strategy because Harris is doing the outreach to people like Bill, going on Bret Baier, and Trump seems to be receding deeper into his information.
This
silo.
is wrong.
Okay, tell me.
This is wrong.
Tell me.
People say this, and it is comforting. And I'm sorry, I'm not here to comfort. I want other people to be as panicked as I am. And I'll meet you in the back. We'll smoke a cigarette together after this thing. But Trump sees a group of people that he's trying to add. It is the people that Sarah doesn't think are reliable voters, and maybe that's right. So that is the comforting part. But it is young, Black, and Latino men, and also college-educated white men, but 20 to 35, UGA grads, boo dogs. Sorry, Carson. That's, I've been watching the TikToks from the UGA tailgate. Not good. Not feeling good about what's happening down there in Athens. But, that is his group. And was it George? No, it was Charlie Dent who said it. That was the one county they improved in is Philly. And they think they can get that number up, not that high, right? They not that high, but if you can get up to 22% or something with the Black vote, or 20% or 18% even in certain places, that is meaningful gains in Philly, in Detroit, and in Atlanta. So that's what he's trying to do.
So Sarah, Tim is describing exactly what you talked about at the start, though, right? So Harris is trying to reach out and get former Republican-ish type professional voters, lots of them are women. And Trump's strategy does seem to be, I'm going to go out and find these dudes who have been playing Grand Theft Auto and smoking weed and get them to come vote for me.
Yeah,
that's
the
about
plan.
right? Is that
No, that is his strategy. It is a turnout strategy with men, young men, people who are low propensity voters, because and this is interesting. The reason they don't have Nikki Haley on the trail, and the reason that they're just okay, J.D. Vance, talk about childless cat ladies all you want, is they have abdicated women. They are not trying to win them over. And what they are trying to do, they are banking on their entire strategy, is about male turnout. And this is where I wonder
about... We talk about Lysistrata.
No, do you want to talk about Lysistrata?
No, I thought maybe that's where you're going.
Bill might want to talk about Lysistrata, but this is where the women...
This is where the conversation goes, well, actually, Lysistrata originated with Thermopylae, right? Thermopylae, whatever. Sorry.
The rough point, and I don't care for this, is that women go on a sex strike to get what they want. That is not what we're talking. I'm right, right?
That's the theme of the play.
Yeah. I know my Greek.
Those are classics. She went to Kenyon, you know?
Yeah, that's right. That is not what I think should happen, nor do I think it is what's happening. So don't go home and say, Sarah said women stop having sex with men because she's a lesbian and this is what she thinks should happen in politics. Don't say that that's what happened. I think that women are simply more reliable voters. I think they have more, this is what, when Bill talks about the post-Dobbs era, I think it is striking that women have never had to vote for Donald Trump when there's been an actual policy reason that is specific to them where they have to trust him on it, right? He could do locker room talk before, but now there's an actual policy issue that matters, and not only is Trump bad on it, but Trump kind of gets away a little bit with his cultural moderation as a celebrity, as somebody who has no sexual morality, so nobody thinks that, like I listen to voters in focus groups all the time who are like, but Trump paid for an abortion, right? Like, they don't think that Donald Trump is a well, we don't know whether he did, but people feel that about him, so they don't think he would be that intense on abortion. But you know who they do think? J.D. Vance.
It was a very strong abortion. It was the strongest abortion anybody's ever had.
I got a good deal. I stiffed the abortion doctor.
Grown men with tears in their eyes said that was the best abortion I've ever seen, sir. That's why. Stop doing this.
You're rolling.
I can't. How did I get drawn into this? All I wanted. Anyway,
We're talking about Lysistrata.
The point is that these young men. I wouldn't put my election. I wouldn't stake it on the idea that you can turn all of these young men out just because culturally they find you attractive as like a lifestyle brand, right? They more want to wear a hat to make some people be annoyed than like maybe actually show up to vote.
Your lips to God's ears. I don't know. Like, this has all been much too happy for me. I would just like to toss a little grenade out there. And so Andrew said at the very beginning of this, the medium term could be okay if she wins because, you get to January 20th and she's sworn in. Getting from like November 5 to January 20th could be scary and unhappy. I think from January 21 on, it can be pretty scary because if you have a country where 40% of the population is actively against liberalism, eventually they'll get their way. Like you can't, they're not a majority, but it's a big enough block that you can't hold them off for forever. And I would just like to toss to my friends, my best friends, isn't that where we are? Can't we?
I'm so happy. Can I please take this? No, can I please take this because I get to be the happy person on one item? I think that about like 10% of those people get bored with this. Like, some of them are just like, okay, I've had enough, and like whatever. I'll vote for whoever the Republican puts up next time, but I'm gonna focus instead on UFC. Like, I don't actually care. I was okay with the Trumpian fascism, but it's not like my whole personality. And I'm happy to move on to something else. So I think that the block is smaller than you think, and if we could just get rid of him, it's not smooth sailings. Nothing smooth sailings in life, JVL. You know that better than anybody, but the seas get calmer.
Bill, am I wrong about this?
I actually think those. I think that.
Say what you said in the green room. You know I'm right.
I can't remember what I said in the green room. I'm getting older. I'm sort of like Biden now. I can't remember. What did I say in the green room?
Folks.
No kidding. What does he always say? No joking.
But this is serious.
No this is serious. Yeah. I don't know. I think
I'm allowed to do it because I love Biden more than any of you. You can laugh.
He does. I mean, it could be that without Trump's personal demagogic appeal and the cult following that's now built up over 10 years, the thing fragments. 20% of them decide they just don't care about politics again. Another 20% decide, I don't know, maybe just a normal Glenn Youngkin Republican's okay. It's not going to be a great Republican Party. Could it be a tolerable one? Could be. And, you know, and it kind of fragments, and hopefully a couple of Democratic administrations are successful, and liberalism reestablishes itself and its credibility and so forth. The alternative is that, you know, Kamala Harris takes over. She does perfectly well, except she has bad luck, and there's a big recession, and then wars break out somewhere, and everyone decides, well, that was a disaster. And then it comes, Trumpism could come back. You could have then, let's have normal Republicanism. You could have, you know what, let's have J.D. Vance and Tucker Carlson and Donald Jr. and right? There are a lot of young, Elise Stefanik. The biggest mistake you can make, though, and I do think Jim wouldn't disagree with that. I mean, I agree that it's possible it fragments. There are a lot of young people in the pipeline, in the Trumpy pipeline, who are not idiots. I mean, they're contemptible, but they're not stupid or foolish. J.D. Vance and Elise Stefanik are intelligent, clever, cunning politicians. And are we confident that a Vance-Stefanik ticket in an environment in which Harris has had, you know, a tough economic recession and some foreign policy failures doesn't win in 2028? I'm not. Is that dark enough for you, JVL?
Yeah, that's right. I just love watching you cook.
Can I play a little bit of devil's advocate? Because I agree with everything Bill says, obviously, but I also want to give like one cheer to like the Republicans that I know, like who are still Republicans, like my friends and family, the people I knew growing up, who are like, a lot of them are, some of them are no longer on the Trump train, but a lot of them are like, we're doing this stupid fucking Trump thing one more time, and like they are people who are in that 47%. Potentially, but who are still not like bought in on the project. There are a lot more people bought in on the project than used to be bought in on the project. But the weird thing, like, I think when we talk to an audience of like mostly Democratic listeners about like these sort of intra-Republican things, you can miss like Republicans make the decisions that they make for a lot of like internal reasons that are kind of hard to even make intelligible to Democrats sometimes. And yes, like this phenomenon is not going away. Trump himself is not going away, and all the people in the pipeline are not going away. But every election you beat them, you give them a chance to reset. You know, you say, go have a primary, figure it out. You know, and we're in the middle of all these shifts. You know, a lot of them don't admit he loses when he loses, which is a problem. That's the kind of, supposedly that's the way you recalibrate, right? You lose and you're like, well, that guy wasn't very popular. Let's go a different direction. But instead, when you're like, next time we'll get them and we'll kick out the fraudsters, it makes it harder to recalibrate. But like, maybe you just have to win 3 or 4 and beat it into them that you have to go a different direction. Maybe you get to go a different direction. I don't know. We got here in 8 years. Maybe we can get somewhere else in another 8 years.
I have a question for you. I'm sorry, I have a follow-up for Edgar. Are any of the people that you were talking about, your friends and family, are any of them gettable? Because I'm offering my services to anybody that lives in a swing state who's gettable. I'm doing individual phone calls. If you have a cousin, if you have a brother,
it's like
I'm not doing
cameo.
it if they live in North Dakota, but if they live in Pennsylvania, I'm doing one-on-one phone calls for people, trying to get them over the edge. Is there anybody like that in your life?
All right, Sarah, tell me.
My whole family's in Missouri, so I've decided to let things mostly slide with them for now.
Ignore. Just don't reply to their text for 3 weeks.
I started thinking about what like an AI Tim voicemail would be that you could like blanket Pennsylvania with. What is your question? What are we talking about?
Boy, this is the story of my life with her.
Was this in a triad?
Do any of you have a best friend like this? She just sort of glazes over when you talk.
This is about the future of the Republican Party?
This is about the future of us. It's about the future of America, and whether my contention is that we have, and this is why I wrote this piece that she didn't read, in which I went through all of the things, all of the rationalizations that we have created for ourselves to explain Trump support over the years. And every single one of these rationalizations fails, right? You know, I remember we had months and months and months of saying, how could Joe Biden be losing to him? And we would just say, it's just because the voters look and they think he's too old to do the job. It's like, okay, well, Joe Biden steps aside and somebody really young comes in, and now Trump is the oldest guy ever. Nobody talks about age anymore. You know, like, we talked about inflation, right? Inflation is now down to 2.4%. Nobody cares. We talked about the price of gas. Do you guys remember this? When I remember, I did this podcast with somebody. I don't remember who she was. And she said, JVL, people can't think about these fancy numbers that you're always talking about. They just make their decisions based on the price of gas. The price of gas is now cheaper in real dollars than it was in 2018, and nobody fucking cares. All of which means, I think, that we've created these rationalizations to explain something.
For a very expensive roast pork and broccoli rab this afternoon. It was like $17.
We have created these rationalizations because we don't want to admit to the real reason, because the real reason is really scary and bad. If only it was that. Right? I mean, if it was just racism.
How many minutes do we have left here? Because if we're going to have this fight, okay.
We have 4 minutes. So just say, JVL, you're right, and then we'll go to the big finish.
You're not right. Okay. And here's okay, so I'm going to try to answer both of these things. First of all, it's not just about the price of gas. The macroeconomic conditions are much improved. But the fact is, it got baked in a long time ago, especially for these younger voters, right? Because the younger voters do not have working capital the way that older voters do. That the cost of housing, which is the biggest one we hear, along with inflation and the price of eggs and food and everything else, right? Yeah, gummies
Boats
are really
have gotten
expensive.
so expensive.
Yeah. I'm just saying that is real, especially for people who are not paying a ton of attention. If you want to hear my best case scenario, it's the fact that what Donald Trump has done by bringing out so many low propensity voters, the Republican Party is looking at that and thinking, what are we going to do when Donald Trump's gone? It's both. They're saying, man, what could we do when Donald Trump's gone? And also, what are we going to do when Donald Trump's gone? Because he is a weird proposition where only he can turn out these low propensity voters who otherwise do not care. And they show up for reasons that aren't the ones that I'm talking about, for people who in good faith are talking about the economic conditions or immigration or other things that they have a problem with that are legitimate concerns. A lot of them, though, it goes back to this lifestyle brand. For a lot of them, it is just, I want to stick my thumb in a liberal's eye as hard as I can, or I'm tired of people telling me about woke stuff. This ad that Donald Trump is running about Kamala Harris is for they, them, and Donald Trump is for you. Now, we may think, that is gross and demagogic, and it is a tried and true. Donald Trump always goes back to who can I marginalize and hate, and who can I get other people to hate who are marginalized? That's his playbook. But that line is extraordinarily effective. It's extraordinarily effective because what it does, again, I go back to these advertising philosophies that I have about it pins to something higher for people, which is that the Democrats are weird, right? That they care about all of these little demographic groups, and that they don't care about you real Americans, right? And so there are a lot of ways in which this breaks down that I think when you get reductive, doesn't make total sense. And the fact is Kamala Harris has improved by 6 points. Joe Biden was gonna get crushed. He was gonna lose. And she is in this in a very real way. And look, I think that maybe we're panicking over these national polls and the fact that she is not up enough, right? Because everybody's got this rule of thumb. JVL's got this rule of thumb. I disagree with him on this too, which is that she's got to win by 4 or 5 points in order to win, nationally she's got to be up by that to win the Electoral College. Well, I don't think that holds true in this election very likely. I think she just has to win Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Nebraska too. That's what she's got to do. And she's holding her own with older white people. And what's good about older white people, and sometimes people are like, man, when did old white people get so good? And I was like, I don't know, when they actually started breaking for Kamala Harris, and including the 11% of Republicans who say they're going to vote for her, because those were people who came to the Republican Party because of Ronald Reagan, and they actually care about the Constitution, unlike people who've come to the Republican Party in the last 10 years who came because Donald Trump. Which brings me to my next point, which is about what the future looks like for the Republican Party, which is bleak, not just because anybody who thinks there's no going back to Mitt Romney and Liz Cheney. There's no going back. They can tough it out. They can tough it out for one more election with Donald Trump.
There you go, bud.
The idea, the party of, when you heard Charlie Dent with his 5 things, right? He had 5 principles. Those were just like normal mainstream conservative principles, and MAGA's 0 for 5. It is a different party. Don't tell me you're voting for Donald Trump because of policy, because the policy of Donald Trump's Republican Party does not reflect the Republican Party that we joined. I don't know, we were at different ages, but like 20 years ago, right? It doesn't. We wanted to defend democracies abroad. Anyway, the Republican Party can become something less acutely dangerous post-Trump, right? It can be, but it will be populist, it will be isolationist, it will be probably both more racially diverse, but also more racially demagogic. So there's a lot about it to dislike, but I think that it could get to a place where it is not acutely dangerous in the constitutional sense, like Donald Trump poses, like, hey, I'm going to turn the military.
Not acutely dangerous.
Let's acutely dangerous. Woo! All right, so listen, this has been a good show, a long show, but I want to close out by talking about
I'm with you on that. I'm totally with you on that.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, hell yeah.
We're going to go around the horn on Pennsylvania, and Sarah, you got to go last. Eggs, you start me off. What's going to happen here in William Penn's Sylvania, his woods?
Well, you got to start with me. This is not my bag, okay? I'm not like the polls whisperer. I don't talk to the focus groups. You know what? Kamala Harris is going to win. See? Clap! What do you want me to say?
Tim?
This is what's going to happen in Pennsylvania. Donald Trump's going to be winning on Tuesday night. Yeah, well, and then on Wednesday morning, it's going to start to look better, start to get closer. Then on Wednesday afternoon, you're like, Philly? Is Philly in yet? No. If Wednesday night Philly comes in, it's like, oh, we're winning. It's like, oh, wait, Luzerne County's still not in yet. Okay, what's happening in Luzerne County? We're going to call them, and it's like, nobody's answering. Why not? They're like, we took the night off. We're going to keep counting tomorrow. And on Thursday, they're waking up in Luzerne County. It's going to get closer and closer and closer. Not quite. Sorry, Donald. Kamala Harris wins on Thursday afternoon.
All right. Phil?
I don't know. You guys know more than we do.
And then the Harrisburg Capitol gets stormed.
Can I ask, can we do one of these clap experiments? Do you know anyone, do you know more people do you know anyone who's switching from 2020 to 2024? That is to say, do you know personally, not what you hear about, but do you personally know people who voted for Trump in 2020 who are not voting for Trump in 2024? Do you know people who voted for Biden in 2020 against Trump who are flipping back to vote for Trump in 2024? Mixed. No, that's my sense. I mean, for every person we know who's horrified by January 6th, the Republican voters against Trump who are switching, you run into other people who went to Biden, but they're disillusioned by various things about Biden, or maybe they don't like Kamala Harris, they don't like who knows which black woman is a little harder sell than Biden from Scranton, Pennsylvania. You get some erosion in Northeast Philadelphia, you get some erosion in Allegheny County, and that's Trump's strategy. And and then you say you terrify everyone about immigration, you demagogue it. That's his chance. I think Harris is going to win, but I'm alarmed.
Sarah, take us home.
Well, wait, what do you think? What do you think?
Here's the thing. Bill and I were talking about this upstairs, and my heart says that Trump's going to win. And my head just keeps looking at the consistency of his vote share, regardless of how big the turnout is. And it just seems hard to me. If she goes 1 point above her current polling levels, which is about right, because again, people jump up a little bit from final polling to the actual vote count. That puts her at like 50.2 in Pennsy, and I think she wins.
That's a winner.
But you know what? Don't clap. Don't ever trust the things that you want to happen. This is why we can't have nice things. So I want to hear from Sarah.
Here's the thing about Donald Trump. And this is in your triad that I read every 1 out of every 5 of. He lives at 47%, right? And I think I take your point on vote share. Vote share is going to matter. And, you know, I've said this. We have this joke in our office. We sit. We pore over the crosstabs. We go back and forth about this demographic and that demographic and compare it to the 2020 results and the 2016 results. And then we all look at each other and we shrug and we go, it's going to come down to turnout. Because it is going to come down to turnout. But here's the thing. Okay, so I think that she can do better than 47%. And so I think she can win this state. But don't sit here and listen to us and care about what we say, because we're just a bunch of political prognosticators who are sometimes, we're so right an equal amount of times that we're wrong, that there are stickers that say we're always right for multiple people who disagree all the time. So we're not always right. So don't take comfort in what we're saying. I say sometimes at these shows, you know, you can't roll up your sleeves when you're wringing your hands. And one of the things that is temperamentally different about Republicans and our new friends on the left is that our new friends on the left, and Tim, I think, he's just a spiritual lib. And JVL a little bit too, because they're panicked all the time. They have rubber sheets on their bed, brought to you by Boll and Branch, and...
Long staple rubber, organic rubber, it's fantastic.
Soft as butter. But, you know, the thing about Trump is that Trump is designed to run a campaign to make all of us feel exhausted and panicked. And it's to flood the zone with shit. And it is the textbook thing that autocrats do across all the other countries that do this. They want to exhaust you. They want to terrify you so that you're in a paralytic state, that the paralysis causes you to not be able to go engage in action. And so you should still listen to our podcast. It's important. We need the numbers right now. But what you should really do is go knock on doors somewhere, call someone that you know who is a center-right person. You know, if you haven't talked to your parents in a while and you're holding your breath because you just think your dad's still going to vote for Trump, call him and talk him out of it. And that is how, like, not getting exhausted, doing an action is the only thing that matters right now. And in a margin this thin, every single one of you is going to matter. This room's going to matter. Do not let them exhaust you. We got to go fight right now. You guys, we got to win Pennsylvania. It's the only thing we can do.
Guys, thank you so much. Thanks for coming out tonight. We're going to be back in a minute or two to hang out and say hi. Good luck, Philadelphia.
Appreciate you all. Appreciate you very much.
Thanks, guys.